Heyo everybody, Haku here with my review for episode 1 of the Tower of God anime. It has been forever and I haven't reviewed this, so I'm so sorry about that. It's just one of those things where I was trying to do reactions week to week when it came out, and that kind of piled up on me and threw everything off. But I'm finally here. I did, if you haven't seen it already on the channel, I already did a review of the series as a whole, and I said I wanted to do that just to get some general thoughts out of the way before I focus down episode by episode, because I know that doing just an episode, people would be like, oh, well, what are your thoughts on this later on, or whatever, since the whole series is out. So I have already done that. So this episode will be just focusing on episode 1 by itself. I have read the manhwa if you're new to the channel seeing this video. And I covered the manhwa on the channel as well. But I try to review things as if I don't read the source material. So this episode I will be talking a little bit about differences in the source material without spoiling anything, of course, but I'll generally try to focus on discussing this as if I haven't read. But yeah, I honestly think that episode 1, when compared to later episodes, at first when I was watching, I was like, okay, this is one of my least favorite episodes, not because it's bad or anything. It has its things that I really like and it's things that I don't like as much, but just generally, I think the other episodes later on were a lot better. But then going back and re-watching this to take my notes earlier today, I thought that this was a lot better than I remembered it even. Like, don't get me wrong, I still think later episodes are even better than this, but I don't know, my opinion is that this is one of my least favorite episodes, but I'm generally still pretty positive about it as a whole. I think a big reason why is because most of my negatives when it comes to this series as an anime is things that were changed from the manhwa storyline. But if I'm looking at it as an episode, there isn't a ton that's necessarily changed. There is stuff that's left out, but the stuff that's left out really doesn't bother me that much because it can easily be handled later on. So it doesn't really bother me that some things were left out here, because a lot of the things that were left out were addressed a little bit later on in the next episode even. I think everything after Bomb gets the Black March this episode is great. It's just the things that the first half, I guess, before Bomb gets the Black March, it's really good still, but the pacing is weird. And I wouldn't even say the pacing's necessarily too slow or that it's bad. It's just weird. Some of the things that they left out, or some of the things that I think adding in that could have helped the episode, were things that they could have done. They didn't have to leave them out. I feel like they could have done a little bit more, because we had some weird flashbacks to things that had just happened, or we had some parts that were a little bit slowly paced in the first half, that if they sped those up, or if they didn't throw in the flashbacks to things that had just happened a few minutes earlier, I think that we really could have had some of those things that they left out. They didn't need to leave them out. Yeah, I think one thing would take this episode, and I'll spoil that my score for the episode's a 7.5 out of 10. I think something that would take it up to an 8 or a 9 out of 10 would just be one simple thing that would have only taken a few seconds, and that's to give an establishing shot of Yuri. Just an establishing shot to show that her and Evan are watching. You don't even have to add in any dialogue or explanation or anything. Would that make it even better? Yeah, but you don't have to. I just think showing that would have handled my biggest problem with this episode as somebody, if I looked at it as somebody who hadn't read the manhwa. If I was watching this and I knew nothing about the series, even then I would still be like, why are Yuri and Evan there? Why did they just sort of come out of nowhere? And there's a lot of stuff like that where you could tell they were kind of skimming through content in the Yuri and Evan bits. So I think just fleshing out the Yuri and Evan bits would have made the episode a lot better, but specifically just before they show up, before she kicks Bomb in the face, give us an establishing shot. Just show that they're there. Just show that they're watching. And that would add so much to the episode, I think. But those are some general thoughts, some notes that I went back through and took while I was watching through the episode another time. Um, I thought the OST is great for the series as a whole. It's just something I need to mention, but I love the intro. I like that we got the whole, what do you want? It's all at the top of the tower, greed, revenge, whatever. I really, really like that we got that part of the intro, and they did it really well. The Bomb and Rachel running scene was always weird. It's kind of weird and awkward watching it, but it's also kind of weird and awkward reading it, so that's something that hasn't really changed. It's just something that always, like, comes off a little weird and awkward. The opening, I have said before, I've talked about this a lot actually, I love the opening song. I love the ending song as well, but at first I loved that the opening was a bit more artsy, a little bit different. It wasn't like your stereotypical anime opening, but after a few episodes I was like, yeah, I'm not really feeling the visuals as much anymore. I kind of wish the visuals were just a stereotypical anime opening. I want to see the cast of characters. I want to see some, like, combatish power stuff, maybe when the song reaches a climax or anything. Like, I don't know. I kind of wish it was more like a regular, no pun intended, anime opening in hindsight. But the song wouldn't change. I really like the song. Head-On's casting is perfection. Head-On's voice is so fitting, so perfect. They could have gone the route of giving him like this weird, more high-pitched voice, more sort of sketchy sounding voice, but going with the actor they did, the one who portrayed Jiraiya most famously, that's gotta be their most famous role, right? Like, the casting was so perfect. Having that voice as Head-On just is so good. Another thing that I took notes on when they were at that point is they could have done more with the pocket explanation. I feel like they could have done more there. I'm also partially not a fan of Black March as like a sword instead of a needle, but it's still a very needle-like sword. We didn't really fully get the explanation of why people don't use swords as often and why needles are like the common weapons like hooks, and what it why it's because of Shinsu being thicker, so there's more drag on a sword rather than a needle. But I do like, I believe it's called, I think it's a reference to, I believe it's called a chokuto, but it's a type of sort of stabbing blade. It's a sword that looks really similar to the anime Black March design that was originally, I believe, brought from Korea to Japan. And that's how the sword was introduced in Japan. And I do like that because, of course, this is based on a Korean manhwa, that that may be a purposeful reference, making its design that way. Plus, I just think the design looks nice. I love the Black March's design here. Again, making it a sword lore-wise, I'm like, I don't know. But design-wise, I think it looks so good in the anime. We do see the Green April a little later on with a knock. The Green April's a design that I think, I like the way the handle looks a lot more in the anime, but I really don't like that they didn't keep the hook at the end of it. Just curve the end, anime, and it would be so much better. Yeah, I really don't like that they didn't leave the Green April as a hook. But either way, like I said, the handle looks a lot better. Overall, the 13-month designs, I liked them for the anime. Let's see. A line that they left out that I'm kind of disappointed that they changed. It's not that they left it out, but that they changed it. When Yuri's yelling at Head-On because Bomb can't break the ball. In the manhwa, Head-On says, well, maybe it's really well made. And I just thought that was such a good line, just such a sly line of, why can't he break it? Maybe it's really well made. It's Head-On just being cheeky about how rigged this game is. And the line just didn't hit as hard, whatever they changed it to in the anime. But I do remember that they changed it, and I was a little bit disappointed because I thought that was such a good line. As Bomb is trying to break the ball, probably my favorite part of the episode is the flashback to Rachel and how what he was doing trying to sort of break through the ceiling matches up to him trying to break the ball here. I think that that's probably my favorite part in the entire episode, and the flashback was just really good too. Now, the Black March, the spirit within the blade, her design is too gorgeous, I think. to me, the way I always perceive the character is sort of like small, impish. I don't know, like elf or goblin like. She looks kind of like Rachel, but like with pointy ears, and she's sort of tiny and skinny. That's the way I always view the Black March spirit, because that's the way it looks to me early in the manhwa. So to me, she looks like this really beautiful princess and everything in the anime, which I think is an amazing design. Don't get me wrong, the design looks amazing. To me, it doesn't really give me the same vibes or fit the same sort of image I have in my head of what Black March kind of is, you know. Another line that Black March says, where she says to Bomb, she will have lived for some time next time you see her and all that. I really don't think they should have added that in there, because as somebody who's watched like a bazillion other channels react to the anime, I've seen like a million reactions, and that's something that almost every single reactor takes as, oh, time is flowing differently for different people, or it's going to have been years that Rachel was in the tower before he sees her again. And yeah, the line is just super misleading, and I don't really feel like it adds much of anything here. So I'm not a big fan of that. Also, I love the test that we got at the end. It's something that I've always loved in the manhwa and in the story. But I like this early look at Leroro and a lot of the other characters. And the end scene is honestly great with Bamkun and Rak. It's so good. And my first time watching, before I had ever seen episode 2, I thought about that end scene. I was like, okay, they did things a little bit out of order, so I don't know how much I like that. I don't know how much I like that they did things a bit out of order. But hindsight really helps with reviewing this, because after seeing episode 2, I think changing the order of the things that happen in this test, it actually turned out I like this test better in the anime than I do in the manhwa. And that's a rare thing to say for me. But yeah, I like the get 400 down to 200 segment of that test. I thought that was actually portrayed better in the anime than in the manhwa. Now, the second part of that test, making allies, I think it's kind of a toss-up, could go either way. There are things I like more in the manhwa, but I think that changing the order of things really improved upon it. But yeah, that is my final thought there. It was a really good ending, and changing the order not only sort of told a better story, I think, next episode, but it left this episode off at a really good hooking point for people who had not read the manhwa. People who were new to the series, this was a really good hook to get people excited for episode 2. So yeah, honestly, my first time, if I were to have reviewed this after my first time watching, I would have been like, oh, 6 or 7 out of 10. It was a good episode. There were some things I didn't like so much out of it. Some things that I wish they wouldn't have left out, but I didn't mind too much, because again, that stuff would or could be explained later. Leaving stuff out is not as big a deal at all to me as changing things, because changing things can screw up things in the future, but leaving things out, you can just add them back in the future. So that really doesn't bother me as much. So this episode, there wasn't really any big changes. Most of the stuff was just stuff that was left out. I would give it 7.5, because having the benefit of hindsight coming back to this episode, I like it a lot more now, because I see where some of the things in the future kind of justify some of the things that were done here. And also just, I don't know, just watching it, I feel like I enjoyed it a lot more coming back to it after a few months than I did my first time watching. So yeah, bumping up the score from the 6 or 7 it would have been to a 7.5. I genuinely like the episode, and I think pretty much every other episode only gets better from here on out, except for the finale. I mentioned it in the sort of review of the series as a whole, but I think the finale was the only episode that I really didn't like. So yeah, every episode from here, I'm really excited to talk about some of them, especially towards Crown Game, which has always been one of my favorite arcs. And and towards the end, I think some of them were pretty good. So, yeah, I'm excited to get to talk about this. These videos will be every Tuesday. At least that's the schedule. That's when I plan to have them. And yeah, that's it. Thank you for watching. Like, if you did like the video, comment down there to tell me what you thought of this episode, what you thought of my thoughts on it, and all that. Subscribe for more Tower of God, both anime and manhwa. Much more on the channel. Follow on Twitter if you want. If you want a link to the Discord server asking, I'll give you one. It's free and open for anyone. And if you would like to help support the channel on Patreon to help me keep making these videos and much, much more, it's patreon.com/Haku of the Tubes, or a link will be in the description. But yeah, either way, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all next time.